This is Spare Time Repair, and this is a Soundesign 5044 from 1988. Using discs of any size as storage media naturally lends itself to horizontal loading, but there were always manufacturers who liked to be a bit different. Notable early examples were the Hitachi DA1000 and the Sanyo DAD M15. While those players are stylish and highly collectible, this Soundesign looks more like a child's toy, but hopefully it still holds some intrigue. I suppose it was intended for those who wanted to see their disc spinning and also have the luxury of stacking items on top, although with its MIDI-sized form factor, the pairing options would be rather limited. This unit will read a disc, quickly displaying the track count on its bright VFD. Press play, however, and it spins up without ever getting started. Skipping forward is a similarly futile exercise, so it would appear that the pickup is stuck in its home position. But will it be as easy to service as a regular player? Of course, I know you'd rather I looked at those Hitachi or Sanyo players, but they go for crazy money. In fact, I had to pay over $60 for this one, so I think there's just a premium on the novelty factor. Well, from above it might look like it's a densely populated machine, but if I tip it up, you'll see it's completely empty underneath. Kind of looks more like a cassette deck in this view. First thing that intrigues me is this leaf switch on the open button. I mean, it's purely mechanical, but I guess that just turns off the display or resets. It wasn't until later that I realised that the real purpose of this switch is to momentarily light up an eject symbol on the display. It's so fleeting that you'd miss it if you blinked, and I can't believe they bothered to include it. And just wondering who the original manufacturer might have been. There are at least 3 Yamaha chips in here, so maybe it was them. Although I don't remember seeing any Yamaha vertical CD players. Well, I think the easiest way to get a closer look at the transport would be to remove the front panel. There's a loose screw in the bottom. Somebody been in here before? 5 screws in the bottom. Well, looks like I would need to remove this screw here. I'm wondering now whether I should just remove the whole transport. To do that, I'll need to disconnect the power button. That's going to have to pull out from the button on the front. And will these ribbon cables release? Yeah, just going to label those. Top. Bottom, and it just looks like 3 cables to disconnect for the transport, then this screw here, and 2 at the bottom. Need the magnetic pickup tool for this one. The transport is just hooked onto this side panel with this piece here, but with that released we're more or less free. I'm going to snip this cable tie. I'm just going to temporarily use a twist tie to stop those flapping around. Well, looks like to remove the transport from the front panel, I just need to undo this screw. Well, in fact, I shouldn't have twisted these together, should I? So now I need to remove this one, and now it's free. So why is the pickup stuck in the home position? There's a bit of sticky grease at the top, and at the top it's riding on this piece via this nylon channel. But if I remove this screw, that will release me from the gears and I should be able to force it. Wow! I mean, that could not be more stuck. What is going on here? Well, it looks like there's a rubber piece at the back that's slipped, but that barely moves at all. If I undo this end of the rail, easier said than done. There we go. I still can't move it. I think ironically they'd added this piece to help it slide, but it's just moved, slipped down, and caused it to become stuck. And it was attached with what looks like duct tape, or some sort of double-sided fabric reinforced tape. Feels like vinyl or something. Sort of flexible. Well, this rail is really sticky as well. Even without that pad, I don't think this would have moved. So let's remove that. So this just needs a general clean-up. I'll clean the old grease off this side as well. In fact, I should remove this flat flex just to free up the pickup. Just going to inject some voltage into this motor, make sure that's working freely. Seems to be, but I'm still going to clean the grease off. Just give these motors a little drop. No tray motor to worry about, of course. These shock mounts still feel okay. Spring at the bottom here and these screws, I guess, are just limiting the amount of movement. This sled limit switch feels a little bit sticky. Just going to give that a squirt of contact cleaner. Not sure that's any better, maybe that's just how it was. And these enclosed ones don't tend to be a problem. And it's not. I'm going to clean and lubricate this rack gear as well. Toothbrush is best for getting into the grooves. I wonder whether this old tape will soak off with a bit of alcohol. Getting it off here might be trickier. I am wearing an anti-static wristband, by the way. Yeah, I think this will come off with a bit of persuasion. I should also clean in these holes. Well, I know it's easy to say with hindsight, but you'd have thought even in 1988 they could have predicted that this adhesive wouldn't last long. I suppose they weren't expecting anyone to be using it 37 years later. So it looks like originally it was meant to sit like this. A bit of contact adhesive is the best option. And while I'm waiting for that to dry, I'm just going to put some new grease on these gears. And this flat flex cable is actually pretty gross as well. It's got some residue on it. Okay, glue has dried. And I don't think that's going to be slipping anymore. So I'm going to hook this back over the top, reinsert the rail. There's actually a little washer here that was on this end stop. Looks like that was originally stuck there. Again, it's left behind a bit of residue. Quickly remove that. So I'm just going to pop that back on this end. And there's another washer on the other end. This one is rubber. That's a very tight fit in that bracket. And that's now sliding nicely. Still going to add a bit of grease here at the top. And since the sled rail is metal on metal, let's use some lithium grease. Now we just need to refit this little bracket. So again, I'll just inject a little voltage to send it back to the home position. And that's almost everything, apart from a lens clean, of course. Now I can reinsert the flat flex. And in terms of servicing, I think we're done. Well, done with the transport at least, but there's still plenty we can do with this front panel. You can see we've got another leaf switch here on the door, so the player can sense when it's open. And this grease on the dampening gear has got rather sticky. And of course this front panel needs a very good clean as well. I'm going to remove this PCB first. Well, that's pretty simple. Just 4 diodes and 3 resistors. Looks like there was another model with a remote control, although they've misspelled receiver. And since this VFD is pretty bright, I'm wondering whether to put a filter on top of it. Maybe a grey one just to tone it down a bit. Just going to check if the buttons are okay. Yeah, they're not too bad. There's actually quite a lot to disassemble here. Which I'm going to clean, of course. Then I think if we remove this gear, we should be able to remove the door. And finally, we're ready to clean. Well, everything's clean now, so hopefully I can remember how it all goes back together. I removed 2 screws here thinking they were for the bottom of the front panel, but they're actually to stabilise this bracket. Before I refit this PCB, I do want to fit that filter. I think that's going to make a big difference. And I secured that filter with 2 thin strips of masking tape. Just checking those aren't visible. I'm just going to put a bit of grease on here as well. This needs to be routed around here. It probably should go under this bracket. There, that's neater. Did this bracket go over or under this bracket? Well, judging by the scratch mark on this little PCB, I'm guessing this went on top. Oh, I almost forgot this little hook needs to go over the side. This hook here, and now the screw holes line up at the bottom. And for my 1988 test disc, I'm going to go with REM. That really does read quite quickly. By the way, you can get the total disc time by pressing the display button, toggles between the two. But do we have playback? Well, it's not very quick searching between tracks, but I don't think that's a fault. So it's quick at reading, but not really quick at anything else. But I do think that display is an improvement. Not much to show you in terms of functionality, but we do have programming and repeat, although once you press it, the only way to clear it is to press stop. It's not an amazing eye pattern, but I can't actually improve it. I tried tweaking a few of the pots. Couldn't find the service manual for this one. But it sounds okay, so I think I'm happy to leave it like that. Just to demonstrate how slow it is at searching, I've put in this 27-track Beatles compilation. So let's get it to go straight to 27. Well, I think that makes it the slowest player I've ever featured in terms of searching. But remember that Sears player that could read a disc in less than 1 second? I'm going to try this with exactly the same disc. And remember, the counter starts from when the disc starts spinning. So it can't beat the Sears, but 1 second dead is not too shabby. While there is an undeniable appeal to watching your disc rotate as it plays, this unit relies a little too heavily on that novelty and not enough on its style. Still, I'm sure it was a winner for some, and although it looks dated now, it would have been a far more attractive prospect in the late 80s, especially for those on a budget. I am intrigued by that stark contrast between the read time and the search time, but if push came to shove, I'd rather have speed in the latter. And if you're wondering about that eject light, here it is in all its glory. Worth the wait, I'm sure you'll agree. But that's all for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.